Hello, hello, hello. How are we feeling about the first Grand Prix of the 2022 season being in the books? I kind of can't believe it. I personally absolutely loved it. I think the regulation changes did exactly what we wanted them to do, which is make the sport as competitive as possible. So I'm giving Bahrain a solid 8.5 out of 10. Drop a comment down below to let me know what you would score the race out of 10 and just, general reactions to everything that happened. I am trying not to get overly excited, but let's be honest, it was pretty great. For this driver deep dive video, I have partnered together our two Canadian drivers, Lance Stroll and Nicholas Latifi. And considering that Canada wouldn't really be thought of as a foundational country in F1 terms, I did think it was quite interesting they have actually had 15 Formula 1 drivers to date. So I feel like that's a pretty solid number. With that being said, the only one to ever win a world championship was Jacques Villeneuve back in 1997. There's also a slightly strange situation whereby since 2020, Lance and Nicholas have actually been racing under US racer licenses. And that's because Canada's National Sporting Authority essentially resigned their mandate from the FIA. And so the guys are still recognised largely as racing on behalf of Canada on race weekends. But if you were to look at their license, it would say that they are American drivers. So slightly bizarre point of view there. But with that being said, let's get into this video and find out more about Stroll and Latifi. Okay, first of all, we are talking about Lance Stroll, and he has been in Formula 1 since 2017, but he's actually still only 23 years old, so he did start out quite young. And of course, he started at Williams and then moved to Racing Point. Before that then became Aston Martin, which his father, Lawrence Stroll, had a big part in. So he played a large part in that deal financially. And as a result of that, Lance has often faced accusations of being a paid driver. Although it was particularly called out because of the Aston Martin deal, reportedly his dad did also sink $80 million into Lance's seat in Williams. So it hasn't just been with Aston Martin, and I feel like it's always tricky for drivers to face these accusations, but really it's up to them to prove people wrong with their performance on the track. Aston Martin seemed to be very badly affected by the low rake versus high rake issues that kind of revealed themselves during the 2021 season, and they made quite a lot of noise about it at the start and ended up largely flying under the radar for the rest of the season, with the exception of Sebastian Vettel's fantastic second place podium in Azerbaijan. But for Lance, it was a particularly quiet year. As far as what he gets up to off the track, Lance is pretty active on Instagram, and he often shares some of his snaps from his winter break and just summer break activities. He actually has some very cool videos of himself snowboarding, which I'm going to pop into the video here because I was pretty impressed by them, and it seems to be one of his favorite kind of non-motorsport hobbies. He is also, as expected, a golfer, and there's actually a video on his Instagram of him taking what looks to be a shot of whiskey after getting his first hole-in-one. I have not seen this before. Maybe this is like a known thing amongst the golfing community, but if you know whether that is true, please leave a comment below and tell me, or was he just living his best frat boy-esque life? Lance is also an NFL fan, but supports the New York Giants, which is fair enough considering that there aren't actually any Canadian teams in the NFL, which means you kind of get to pick whoever you fancy out of the league. He has been kind of pretty private. Like I said earlier, he's had a quiet season in 2021 and hasn't been as big a personality or as visible in the paddock, which has been interesting. I think Aston Martin are probably hoping to make, much bigger strides this year than they did last year, given their lack of performance. So let's see what Lance and Seb can pull off, albeit when Seb returns from having COVID. Obviously, Nico Hülkenberg is filling in for him in that seat at the moment. So number 2 on our list is Nicholas Latifi, and he has only been in Formula 1 since 2020, but he is actually a couple of years older than Lance. He's 26 years old, and he spent a total of 3 years in F2. So that is a big part of why he is sort of older in years but has less experience than Lance. 3 years in F2 is definitely longer than the average that you would see, but it partially explains why his route to F1 has then been a bit more circuitous. He's also faced, similarly to Lance, accusations of being a paid driver due to the fact that his family owns Sofina, which is one of Williams' title sponsors. Essentially, you'll be actually probably really familiar with the name from the Williams rear wing. And I suppose given how terrible the Williams car has been performance-wise over the last number of years, that does make it a little more difficult to assess Latifi's skills as a driver. But I would certainly agree that I personally don't feel as though he has the same level of talent or X factor as many of the drivers around him do. I don't doubt his dedication whatsoever, I just don't think he quite has that spark. So before I get into what Nicholas Latifi gets up to when he's not on track, it is worth mentioning that he has a bit of a love-hate relationship with social media, and that's largely because of the aftermath of the Abu Dhabi finale last year. He was, of course, the car that crashed out, that led to the safety car, that then led to all the drama around Lewis versus Max in the final corner. And he had to take a break from social media after that incident because he actually received death threats and had to go to the extreme of hiring bodyguards so that he could go on a trip to Winter Wonderland in London with his girlfriend. I know that F1 fans are always going to be super passionate, but sending a driver death threats is absolutely outrageous and completely out of line, and he definitely never should have had to suffer that level of online hate. All of that drama aside, outside of F1, much like Lance, Nicholas Latifi is a snow bunny, and he loves getting out in the snow anytime he's got some time off or a break from Formula 1. He is also really into getting out of the water, and I've got a pic of him here water skiing, I believe you'd call it. It looks more like a board, but I don't know what to call it if that's the case. In any case, lots of the F1 drivers love jet skiing, water skiing, and I kind of get it because it's a mini adrenaline rush, which obviously they're probably, at least some of them, are probably going to miss once they are out of the car for any period of time. In addition to that, he is very into coffee, and he actually has a brand partnership with Lavazza, and there's actually a running joke as well, kind of randomly, that Latifi always has a jar of Nutella close at hand, which, to be honest, who wouldn't want that? But I doubt that he actually gets to delve into it much because of how lean the drivers have to stay in order not to overweight the car. So I think that's more of an internet meme than a real fact, perhaps. Who knows? So all in all, there are definitely a fair number of similarities between these two drivers, and I think unfortunately for them, due to their sort of lack of oomph thus far on track and the fact their families have such significant involvement in their seats in F1, I think unfortunately they will continue to hear a lot of people saying that there are other drivers in F2 who are waiting for their shot that could potentially perform better than them. With that being said, the 2022 season has proved already, after just one race, to be very different than last year. So let's see what kind of performances these two can manage. I think given the struggles that Mercedes-powered cars have been having thus far, they're going to have to push really hard on their own back to make any major progress, but it doesn't mean that it can't be done. I really can't believe that this is my final driver deep dive video. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who interacted with the series. As many of you will know, it was a viewer-led series, so I've had folks commenting on each video to let me know who to cover next, which has been just a lot of fun, really, and hanging out with you all in the comments. I'm hoping to do another series like that again soon. If you have any ideas, please do leave a comment down below. I always hang out with you all after the video drops every week. And other than that, until the next video, take care and enjoy the Saudi Grand Prix.